This is your 20-minute news segment coming at you each and every month. This is April 2025. 3 of the big moments of the month brought to you by me, Justin Hast, and...
me, Emily Marsden.
First take! Brilliant. Em, how are you doing?
I'm good. Quite enjoyed our little hiatus. I think
We've had a month out.
quite an intentional month out. I think, Watches and Wonders is a wonderful thing, but detailed coverage is already out there.
It's already out there. In fact, it almost would have been recovering the same ground, and we're not here to do that.
Yeah.
What we are here to do is we're here to cover one story each from the month, and so April 2025 plus a kicker. As you've all become, hopefully you're becoming aware of, there's a kicker at the end, which is a sort of more tongue-in-cheek take on something broadly watch-related, but not specifically watch-related. So, and one of our big challenges, you and I, is before we start recording, holding back from talking too much. That is our big, and it may not come as a surprise to anyone out there listening. It's one of our big challenges. So we've tried our best to not pre-game this, but we've got some interesting themes, some interesting news. Lead us off, take us away, and what's the first piece?
Okay, and this is where the lack of free gaming comes in. My interesting news for April is, it has to be for me, the Breguet. The new Breguet subscription, 250 pieces, it's a wristwatch. Now, this is importantly not the first time that Breguet have gone back to the subscription. So, to give a little bit of context, Breguet, the father of I think arguably the father of watchmaking, in 1796-7, introduced the subscription that was post the French Revolution. Basically, the landscape had changed. You didn't just have these, really rich people that were coming flocking for watches. He needed a way to democratise access. So he basically created these watches. He advertised it and said, you pay a quarter now. It's about £600 in today's money. Pay a quarter now. It's a fairly standardised watch. And advertising watches in those days really wasn't a thing. So that's a subscription. It was supposed to be something that was a little bit more for the masses, given the context.
And just to be clear for anyone out there, you will see the visual over this now, but it's a pocket watch.
It's a pocket watch. It's a 60 mil pocket watch.
A single hand.
Yep.
Which again is quite disorientating for many.
And Breguet, right? You think Breguet, you think complications, you think tourbillon. But again, this is the point of the watch. It's supposed to be simple, supposed to be straightforward. Anyway, so over the years, pre-Swatch, even during Swatch, Breguet have come out with subscription models. I don't think it's controversial to say they weren't particularly faithful to the subscription, and I'm a huge fan of the sort of narrative of bring back Breguet, and Breguet is this wonderful brand that I think is capable of doing so much, and we hark back to the pre-Swatch years, but actually the pre-Swatch years weren't also faithful replications of the subscription. Every era has its pitfalls and its greatnesses. But anyway, what is really cool about this is the first subscription wristwatch that I think is fair to say is faithful to the original 1796, 1797 Breguet subscription. 250 pieces. Breguet did around 700. 45-ish thousand. Punchy.
So there's so much to unpack here. There's so much to unpack. I think number one, I wrote a short piece about this for the Rake magazine. Number one, and I opened up by saying everyone who loves watches wants the best for Breguet.
Yes.
And that is interestingly that is also and I'll tell you this. It's just hit me now. I was having a lunch at Vacheron Constantin with a number of their executives a couple months back. God only knows how I got the invite, but I was there. They have this incredible sort of big dining table up in the HQ there, and they were all saying we want Breguet at the table. We want Breguet to do well because Breguet elevates everyone. And so right now, Breguet is going through this interesting phase. Last year, they had a new CEO put in, and he's come from Omega. Broadly speaking, everyone I'm speaking to is everyone says he's awesome. He's a product guy, done amazing work at Omega. His name escapes me, but everyone seemingly loves him. The question is, and we know that the cycles, watchmaking cycles, tend to take 2-3 years to implement change. To what extent was he involved in this? I mean, he's only just come in, and people are already sort of connecting the two, which I don't think is absolutely right. Yeah. However, the way in which they've communicated it, I think their social for this launch has been dialed up and far better. Teasing feels much more like Vacheron, much more like AP in the sense that it's connected to the audience, whereas a lot of it for the last decade, 2 decades, it feels like Breguet's been completely detached from the collector community, whereas that was awesome to see.
Yep.
Even the visuals, the photos they took of the watch, the press pack images, and from my side, the comps, like the press release and other things, was elevated, and it felt much more modern.
Yeah.
But you're right, the pushbacks straight away were, well, saying that, I think we should start because we're positive people.
Yeah,
we're not negative.
sir,
We're not
naturally.
negative. We're naturally positive. So, and people think, where does it come from? But I would say for that weekend when the watch launched a weekend or two ago, and for the days after, it was all about Breguet. Everyone online was talking about Breguet,
in a long time.
and that in itself. And I said this to the team there. I said, guys, irrelevant of the pushback, it was all everywhere, and people, all people were talking about was Breguet, and that's amazing. So that 100%. By itself is wonderful.
And let's be clear, every watch has pushback. It's not that this watch is unique in its pushback. There's no such thing as a perfect release, because there's no such thing as a perfect watch, because there are so many people in the world that have different perspectives.
I'm thinking, has there been one in recent times? Like, I'd actually love to know in the comments, guys, is there something below that has... You can think top end, bottom end. I'm thinking like Baltic comes out with some beautiful watches, recently done a chronograph for the racing series, but it's like, it's just over sort of 1,500 quid, but for that movement, it's just too much. Yep. I'm thinking Studio Underdog and Moser. It's like, that's a problem. That's a problem. Alienated. There's always a problem. AP. I mean, Patek, the Cubiters. There's always a problem.
Always.
So you're right. We need to be aware of that.
Yep.
Everyone, there's a lot of noise out there.
So much noise.
But then again, the noise is from the purists. And when it comes to Breguet, the noise has been about two things. It's been about size, 40 mil.
Yep.
For me, fine, but I appreciate for a lot of people out there, it's
those big wrists.
Maybe. But then again, I should caveat that by saying that sizing's an interesting one, because we see Rolex and others dialing the sizing up slightly. Look at the Submariner in the recent years, gone 1 mil up.
1 mil counts.
So actually, the market says... The commerciality says slightly bigger watches with date windows in blue sell, whereas the noise, I think, I'm going to hypothesize here, and I know a lot of people watching this will be the people I'm commenting on right now, and it's us, the purists, which is to say, actually the purists would have loved a 37 mil or 38 mil, but the market seemingly, and I spoke to, again, had a brief chat with the team there at Breguet afterwards. I just said the noise was awesome, and apparently they tell me lots have sold already in the UK. So
I can believe that.
So there.
But then let me counter that. Two things. Number one, it's a 40 mil watch for a reason. It's a single hander. Trying to read the time on a single hander that's small. Bear in mind it has minutes a track, right? So you do really have to. You can't just glance. So I think the size makes sense in that way, and I also believe that the market and the purist is the same thing in this conversation. We're not talking about a Rolex here where the market and the purist can be separate. There are 250 of these watches. Now, Breguet, is it trying to become popular to the mainstream, or is it trying to claim back its purists? I think they're two separate tracks. But what it has done, there's no world in which they don't sell 250 of these pieces. There are 250 watch collectors out there with 45,000 that think this is a important enough piece of Breguet history.
The reason that the pricing is a problem, I mean, again, every brand seemingly has a problem with pricing right now, because their prices are going up, especially with the tariffs and other things going on. The prices are going up. The secondary market prices are coming down.
And to a large degree as well.
And you look at Breguet, and we've talked about it, we've had loads of conversations with friends of ours. There is no better money in the secondary market than in Breguet right now. I mean, that's the challenge. And I remember years ago someone once said Rolex's biggest competitor is Rolex in the secondary market. That's Rolex. And for Breguet, I almost feel the same, because what's going to stop you going in the boutique and buying that watch? Well, the idea that you could get a tourbillon, 36 mil tourbillon for $30,000, which is arguably one of the most, I can't remember the reference off the top of my head. Yellow gold tourbillon. Guilloche, it's all there.
The watch market's a mess in that way right now, though. I think that's a massive problem. Like you say, you've got
these scales
new watches that are absurdly high for the most part across the spectrum of collecting, and then the pre-owned second-hand market. We've almost come back to where it should be, which is it's quite normal for watches to trade under value, and COVID completely skewed that for people. I feel for people that discovered collecting in that period, where it was somehow an asset to be to be sort of revered.
I feel sorry for people like us though now, honestly, because every night we look online, every night we're on the website, every night we're on Chrono. There's opportunities for interesting watches to be great value, and that's scary because it's suddenly the market's tipped towards collectors again, and that's cool. But it does mean, okay, those who are really passionately excited and honestly excited are in trouble. What I would caveat my point previous about the pricing, what are the reasons you would go and get this watch? Well, as you said, it's limited edition, but also the case. So I got a chance to see the watch.
Yeah.
You know, and so thank you to the UK team for allowing me to shoot the watch just before. Immediately I was struck with the elegance of the case. Mm-hmm. So no coin edge case anymore.
Yeah.
Which,
controversial.
Controversial. I think it opens it up to more people because I love Breguet, but aesthetically, it can be very, very formal. Between the coin edge case, the Roman numerals, and the Breguet hands, and the guilloche dial, multiple finish guilloche dial, it's a very dressy watch. And you know, I like to dress up low and high, but that is really extreme. It's like a t-shirt with that. Super cool. I would give it a crack, but it's going to be challenging. Mm-hmm. So in this sense, it dials it down. The formalities dialed down slightly. Mm-hmm. It's beautifully done. But the real showstopper for me was actually the dial. So it is this enamel dial, but it's a curved dial, and that is really, really fucking interesting. Yeah. Because it's beautiful in the metal, truly beautiful and different. That is, I'm not sure what that is called, but that is proprietary to Breguet as well. So that sloping of the dial, alongside, we should say, by the way, Breguet Gold, which is now proprietary
new.
And
again, very new. Which is, when you think about it, it's already been likened to Omega's Gold, right? It's already been compared to it. So, just coming back to your CEO point, I would imagine if you're transitioning as a CEO, you do have some sort of runway before of influence, and that gold is some sort of indication.
Everyone seems to do it. I mean, we've got Chanel with their own gold. We've got AP with sand gold. We've got Langer and Zona with honey gold. Yep. So it's just another way for the watch world to sort of just segment it, just compartmentalize its own space, but put up the bridges and say, this is what we own. This is what we own.
And anyway, another thing on the enamel dial, though, did you notice the engraving on the dial?
No, not
so there's a secret engraving,
the secret engraving
on the subscription, which again is a great detail back to the original subscription. So this was a device created by Breguet to stop people falsifying or selling false versions of his watches. The fact they've put that on now, I just think that's a really interesting detail.
Before we started recording, I said to you, but is it cool? Is it cool? Because reissues, we've gone through this process, like, reissues cool? Now, we've talked a lot about the 1921. It's impossible to talk about Breguet without talking about Vacheron, I think, because they are there's such a similarity in impact and style. And the 1921, because I don't like reissues. I'll call it now. I don't particularly like reissues because if you can have the original, there are some caveats to that. And I'm going to call out the Entraîneur and the 222 as two caveats because they're better. They're just better watches than the originals. But you couldn't own the subscription pocket watch. I mean, most aren't going to own, and it's not a wristwatch. So I don't see it as a direct compete. The 1921 was so small, and there were so few of them made, that it's not feasible to have owned that. So those are allowed in my realm.
That's really fascinating. So, but then is the Breguet a re-edition because it's a pocket watch that was 60mm through to a wristwatch?
It passes that test. It's a tribute, and it passes that test.
Yeah.
Whereas, call it tribute, 3705, IWC 3705.
Yeah, the literal tribute,
I'm actually torn because I've owned that watch, and it is amazing. Yeah. But again, they're not now, actually, funnily enough, totally dissimilar prices. I mean, the tribute's probably at 8,000 quid. You can get a 3705 now for, say, 15. Okay, kind of double. But at the end of the day, you could potentially have the original, or do you want the tribute? Yeah. And in that instance, I feel like the original is always going to be better, even though I do, by the way, love the tribute. The 41mm sizes versus the 39. Nice watch. Anyway, just a thought. I do think that Breguet is now actually a non-compete. So I think it passes that test.
So coming back to your question, is it cool? Again, bang on about culture, but collecting culture is real, right? The sort of subsection of nerds. Cool. What do we mean by that? Are we saying it's cool because it's passed the test of the purists? I think it probably does pass the purist test. Certainly, the people I've spoken to, the largest pushback is the price. I'm sure these people probably will. There are people paying it. But here's an important question: actually, does it make Breguet more appealing to the younger market? As you said, it's a super dressy watch by design. I wouldn't want them to change that. But what they have done is made small changes, such as the coin edge being gone, to make it arguably more interesting. For younger or culturally interesting.
The acid test is if you saw it across the room at dinner or on a flight, what would your immediate visceral response be?
I'd really want to go see it.
It'd be cool.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
I bet you get it. I just assume collector. We can all try and deny it as much as we like to. The watch on somebody's wrists, you build up an immediate perception of them in terms of where they stand in the collecting world. Absolutely do.
Yeah.
I think that for me is cool. I think it's cool, but then I think, everything's cool probably. That sort of stuff is cool to me, like George Daniels, Roger Smith, that sort of watchmaking I think is fascinating.
And we have to close the first segment there because we are rapidly running out of time. I feel we might just creep over 20 minutes today, guys, so apologies. Hopefully we won't. Moving on to the second segment, which is my segment. I have been struck by something interesting. It's this idea of customization. Piaget have announced recently that you can go into their boutiques, not all of them, but some of them, I gather. I think it's going to be in London. I think it's actually going to be happening this month. Okay. But the announcement, I believe, was last month around the Andy Warhol watch. It's no secret that I love that watch. It's no secret that I'm on a journey to make one of those watches, which I'm super excited about sharing more about as and when it happens. But you can now go into the boutique and you can customize those watches. You can choose the stone dial from a preset selection. You can choose the case, you can choose the hands, you can choose the engraving. So there's a whole bunch of different variations. And the interesting thing is that this is at the high end of the market. This is also an expensive watch. And compounded with that, and the reason it's also in my news story, and I have no details on this, but I have been speaking to a colleague of mine who has tentatively said that there may well be some additional brands within that group, within the Richemont group, who may be experimenting with this application down the line. Not the first time we've seen this. We've seen LVMH, we've seen Zenith go through this, and I think Bulgari even as well, possibly with no, I don't think they did actually, but definitely Zenith with Bamford, where you had this customizable element on the website. So I guess what do you think of that? Like, are we at a point now where everyone wants something different?
Without doubt. Or we are at a point where at all ends of the collecting spectrum, people want to feel closer to something. People want to feel more connected. People perhaps, we are going through a seismic shift in the collecting world. How many people do you know that are downsizing their collections? I think of Raoul and his love of Piaget. And this is a man who is probably one of the nerdiest people I know in the most wonderful way, but is letting go of some seriously big pieces. And then again, on the other end of the spectrum, people who are just relatively new to the world are going, hang on a minute, I was just buying, I was consuming. And I think one way of doing that, one way of appealing to that sort of collector, it's already a historical piece, the Andy Warhol, but then saying you can collect it. And again, if you're a Piaget enthusiast, of course it harks back to the 60s, the 70s. That is Piaget, this concept that you can have whatever you like. It's really fascinating.
In some ways, it's almost a defensive play against the competition that's coming in from the independents, because as we have touched on before privately, if you were going to go through a process of ordering a watch, I mean, I know for a fact that if you were buying an Anderson Geneva Oldtimer, for example, gorgeous one released, by the way, recently with Turkish watch guy, it's very much bespoke. You can actually decide what enamel you want on what cloisonné enamel you'd like on the dial. So in some ways, it's a bit of a defensive play against the freedoms that are a direct competitor to Piaget and high-end group watchmaking from the independents.
I think you're onto something there. Independents are the darling of the watch world right now. They have been for some time. I don't see it dying down. And why is that? I think there is this element of, like you said, customization or at least influence over what you're buying. But then I do think of wider, Hermes at the moment, you can do the time your way. It's much less detailed, but it's still a set thing. If you can choose the case material, the dial, engraving.
I don't think that's launched because obviously we went to Hermes.
No, Hermes. It's now available.
It's in London now. It's in the London boutique. Because when we were there, it was just about to start. Yeah. So your HO8 you can customize.
And I think it's the same price.
And it is the same price, I think. And we got excited because we thought that maybe you could do advanced customization. Just to caveat it all, it's, to make it commercially viable for the businesses, it needs to be in line with no killing date windows on
Justin
HO8s.
had literally re-scripted the whole watch.
And no hand-wound calibers.
I just like a few small changes, Philippe. Just hand-wound. just a tiny detail.
And that's a great example, actually. That's what I was looking for another example of a brand that's, using this. To its advantage now. I'm thinking Romain Gaultier now as well, because with the C you can customize that. The platinum versions. You can have a platinum case. Okay. You can do whatever you want to that dial. And we've seen versions of that where Anita Porchette, the beautiful enamelist, she's done work. One of one. They did a one of one for Only Watch, I think. I've seen versions with stone dials for clients, which just has a lapis dial, for example. No markers, no name, no nothing. So I think I know you're right, and you and I think we're always looking for the oddball watch. We're not in a position yet to have anything. We're not customizing anything apart from this Piaget, but we're not customizing anything.
Yeah.
So the alternative is to look out there and find the oddballs.
Yeah.
And in many ways, that's our storytelling moment. That's our. So look, we have to leave that there. I think it's a big subject, two big subjects, but really, really interesting. And I'm sure we'll come back to both of those, because we should say it's Breguet's 250th anniversary this year, and there will inevitably be more to come.
Oh, this is the start.
So this is the start of something.
And I'm excited, truly, for the first time.
For a long
I'm
time.
paying attention of what I'm thinking about. Okay, what could they be releasing? I've got so much hope for them. Really do.
We should also say that this is the first year from Piaget that officially they can call the watch the Andy Warhol watch, the Warhol watch, with the partnership with the Andy Warhol Foundation. So they've actually accredited this. You've got the new one that came out with the Clou de Paris bezel. I think there's going to be more to come on the Andy Warhol watch later this year, and I may have something to say about it later as well.
I think there is.
I'm just going to tee that up.
I think I may.
There's more to come on that subject. So, moving on to our final segment. How deep are we in here? Oh gosh, we're only 15 minutes in. Hold tight. We've got a cheeky 5 minutes to conclude, which is
right. Here we
a
go.
big subject. Don't worry, it's not Donald Trump. We've moved on from politics.
You had to bring it up again. Had to do it. Had to bloody do it.
Thank you, all of you, for your comments on that. We are moving on to something far less divisive. We're moving on to Bond. And because, let me tell you this, last year, I think, maybe early this year, Amazon, MGM have come in and taken full control, full ownership of Bond. It's a seminally important fixture in the watch world.
Wild.
It's hard to quantify how important Bond has been to the watch world over the years.
Absolutely.
It is now into its 63rd year.
Okay.
This year, 2025. I believe the next film is going to be coming out in 2027. Yes, 2027, we think.
We hope.
But we're not entirely sure.
It's been a big old break.
$250 million budget. So we're talking big money, I think, in relative terms. Someone will tell me.
Some deep pockets.
But Jeffy boy, he's
Isn't
recently...
that the biggest, big boy move? Like, I'm a grown man and I've got rockets. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy Bond.
Some people buy football clubs.
Yes, I'm going to buy James Bond. Anyway.
I think in many ways he associates... I think he sees himself as a modern day Bond.
Those biceps are quite impressive now. Have you actually seen sorry to jump away from the topic, but the Jeff Bezos sort of 10 years ago to Jeff Bezos now?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, he's all about longevity, and he's all about...
TRT is there, but I think it might be.
And I'm gonna even take it a step further, and sadly he's gone through a breakup, he's gone through a divorce, but wife, clearly a big money divorce.
Yeah.
What did she come out with, do we know?
Oh, in the billions. She's one of the highest. She's given away billions now. I can't remember exactly how much, but quite interesting.
Oh wow, I wonder who the divorce lawyers were. Someone did well out of the deal, as well as her. He couldn't have been an easy man to be with. Don't know him personally. Couldn't have been an easy man to have been in a relationship with. Just making that assumption.
Yeah.
But I would say that the rise of the physical for him has also been one of the detriments to the relationship, because clearly that man, the servicing needs from that man's perspective with the TRT, with the increased testosterone. I'm only making assumptions here.
It took me a second to process that.
the testosterone replacement therapy, which by all accounts in the US is
ubiquitous
everywhere.
Yeah.
Go in, I'm running low. Pump me up. And the man's come out and he's looking good. The skin's looking good. He's physically looking good.
Yeah.
Is he going to live for longer? That's the question that we've all got.
I can only
Time will tell. But his spacecraft touched down, controversially, with a female crew. Crew divisive because they, of course, didn't do anything. They were passengers. They weren't crew. They were passengers. One of them wearing a Beauvais on their wrist.
Yes,
we're going all over the shop here.
That was a good move. That was a good move.
We're going all over the shop here. But I gather one of the women on board was his new fiancée.
Yes, Lauren Sanchez.
Fantastic.
Not that I keep up with the new.
Is she slightly younger, I would take it, and slightly taller?
Definitely tall. I don't know. I think they're roughly the same age.
Wow. Okay.
Just stereotyping the poor man.
Sorry, forgive
roughly
me. Jeffy, this man's sucking on lemons. Can you tell?
I think roughly the same age. She's a news presenter. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. So, okay, forgive me. Sorry, I've discredited her there, assuming that she would not be professional and not be as sort of model-like. But she's clearly beautiful and obviously intellectually challenging. Anyway, we have
serious territory here.
Sorry. We can tell we like to be divisive on the final segment. But let me tell you this. The Rolex era for Bond ran from 1962, first movie, Dr. No, to 1989, the year I was born. A good year. 36
and
years.
Taylor Swift.
And Taylor Swift. Didn't know that one.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. The Amiga generation, 1995 to present day. And I think 1995, we will be corrected in the comments if I'm wrong here, but I think Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
My favourite Bond, again.
My favourite Bond
highly
too.
Highly controversial. Where's Gerard Perregaux in real life? He wears a rectangular. I saw it in the FT the other day because he's a beautiful painter, and I love his paintings, and I love his aesthetic. I always think to myself,
cool.
Super cool. And I look at him and I think, God, that's the sort of guy I would like to be one day at that age.
Yeah.
That's aspiration. Like he was Bond. Yeah. He's now a painter, an artist in California.
Incredible.
Surfing every day, tanned up to the gills.
Northern Irish, like when he switches into that as well every now and again, because he is Northern Irish, yeah.
And he's been with the same woman, I gather.
Like deeply in love. Amazing. They're always posting about each other. Beautiful.
That's the man. Talk about aspiration. Like, I'm not into celebrity. That's the man.
He is the man. I completely agree with you.
So you've got Gerard Perregaux on the wrist. The question is, where does Bond go next? Because I gather, and I might be wrong here again, I don't know, I've not looked at the finer detail of the agreement, the contract, but I gather that the watch partnership, the watch sponsorship is up for grabs.
Really?
It's an interesting segue to Gerard Perregaux because we know that Gerard Perregaux has featured in Bond in the past. From Russia with Love, it was in there. I think it was a triple calendar that one of the enemies wore. So it's there.
Yep.
There's a backstory. I posted about this briefly online, and a lot of people were coming back to me with either a Vertex, CWC, military heritage, or even, and I think this would probably be one of the cooler plays, is an issued Rolex. So a mil spec, would be interesting. So something that's not available now. You'd imagine that a brand like Rolex, if it were to be Rolex again, would then issue it again. It would be a reissue of a reissue of an issue, like an issued watch. Would that be cool? No. But would it be commercial? Very much so.
I think, unfortunately, none of the watches or the brands you've mentioned, they can't afford it.
Final kicker for you. And I know it's one that you'd appreciate, but this was someone that people mentioned, George Daniels. So a George Daniels watch on Bond.
A George Daniels watch?
Could it be even a pocket watch? I mean, would that be player?
All I can think of is they're not waterproof. The guy's jumping everywhere.
Does it need
sweating
to be?
For various reasons.
Does it need to be? It would be, for us, it would be insulting to see it exposed to those conditions. But for the everyday spectator, they're not even going to blink twice. George Daniels pocket watch. Tell me that's not player. Tell me that's not Bond.
I'm sorry. I am a huge George Daniels fan, but I simply don't understand this line of thinking. It literally makes no sense, sir. Not at all.
Modern Vertex, then. Is that where we're going?
Okay, let's go back to why. Why does James Bond wear a watch? Who is he? He's 007. He's running around shooting people, kissing on ladies. He's an active guy. He's an active guy.
Well, is he a guy? That's we're now getting to another
right. Well, in the book, he's a guy. How about that?
In the book, he's a guy. Do you think we're going to see a female Bond next?
No.
Okay. Would it make any difference about the watch? I mean, that's even more interesting.
Well, my favourite Bond watch of all time is worn by the inimitable Honor Blackman as Pussy Galore in Goldfinger, who was the first woman, or the first Bond girl to wear a man's watch. She wore the Rolex 6542 with a Bakelite dial, and that's a grail for me, just simply because of that. And in the book, she does as well.
That watch just looks brilliant. On
phenomenal.
And I'm not saying like a smaller wrist here. I'm saying saying more of a feminine aesthetic. That's what I like that watch, and I know I mentioned a colleague earlier, actually, a woman who wears one, and that 40mm case, the bracelet, the patina. It needs to be beautiful. A vintage one. It needs to be a neo-vintage one.
There's something about it. It's charming.
It's something charming and chic. I don't know what that word means, but it's what comes to mind.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think? A female Bond?
Viscerally, I feel like no.
No.
I'm sort of, and we are creeping onto difficult territory here again, which we don't need to be doing.
Maybe we just divert away.
No, let's take it on. No, I think intuitively, there are a lot of things that need change in the world. We need to be respectful of more people more often in more environments.
Absolutely.
We don't need to be respectful of the fact that, yes, this was precedent. This was written as a book. Mr. Bond himself was in the story. I just don't think we need to be messing with that. There are just some things in life we just don't need to be messing with.
I also think women deserve more, right? A great new movie.
It needs to be entirely separate.
You don't need to...
We're not encroaching.
What they can do is stop having Bond do questionable things with women that say no. Things like that.
Yes, agreed.
So it actually... in the scene with Honor Blackman, she repeatedly says no. Like, you know, all these things you just don't write into movies now. I think Craig's Bond is actually done so much more.
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig's Bond.
Yeah.
Completely revolutionised James Bond. He went from this misogynist, and that was the part of the character, and you know, sort of like someone supposed to be charming, to a deeply flawed man, a broken human being that by the end controversially dies, but he's got his babies sort of like Teddy or something, right? That is an emotionally in tune Bond who represents a new world. That is enough. That continue that story. Do what Daniel Craig himself said. I hate James Bond. I don't want to play him anymore because he didn't like that angle of him, and he moved him on. He did what we should all be doing in society, which is just be a better person.
On that note, ladies and gents, thank you very much for joining us.
What an episode!
Thank you. Wow, that was banging. That was really enjoyable. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did, because that was awesome.
I did not see coming.
And what a way to finish, by the way. Thank you, Em. Thank you as always. Goodbye. You know, University Challenge. You know the guy that hosts University Challenge. He says goodbye from University College Brighton, University College Oxford. Goodbye. Goodbye from Edinburgh University. Goodbye. And goodbye from me. Goodbye. I think we should have an end very similar. Goodbye from me, Justin Hast.
Goodbye from me, Emily Marsden.
And goodbye from both of us. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Done and dusted.